Dean Blevins, how are you?
Doing great. How are you, Matt?
We finally start.
We did it.
Okay, you are the Dean of the College of Education and Health and Human Services. Is that accurate?
Sciences.
Science. God, I screwed up the S again.
It's okay.
I told you I was going to screw that up
It's
too.
frequent. People do it frequently.
Okay, well, I'm
Yeah.
not the only idiot.
You're not the only one.
Listen, can you finish what you were telling me about the esports league that you did a podcast for something?
Yeah. So we have an esports team here on campus, and they do broadcasts where they're doing their competitions. It's in the basement of one of our buildings here. It's this thing that's been around for like 4 years and is growing. And these young people are part of a team. And so they invite in guest speakers, and they have a lot of students from our broadcast and journalism media degree who are part of the broadcast. They put it on. They have a whole studio behind them. They have players who are playing the games. They've got multiple cameras. It's a whole enterprise. It's fascinating, frankly. Yeah. And they're doing really cool stuff and sort of supporting students in that. So they call them athletes, and they have student support services. I was hearing from kids who were like, this is what kept me in school my freshman year. Like, this team helped me get connected. They helped me stay in school, because otherwise I was like, by myself. I was isolated. I'm a gamer. I'm by myself. But here I come and I have this whole team of people. So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I definitely flunked one semester of college because of video games, but I think what you're describing would have been far better for me.
Yeah.
Because if you have people with similar, addiction, personalities, or, habits that are bad, it's like, hey man, look, it's not bad that you want to play for 10 hours. That's fine. You just got to wait till Saturday. And you got to get your homework done. Like, we've all been through this. So, like, yeah, we're all in, but, like, drink responsibly.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
Regulated and be part of a team. And
Yeah.
you're working together on these things. So,
Yeah, God
pretty
bless
cool.
it, man. That is cool. So, look, being the Dean of Education, one thing that I've been really thinking about is we talk so much about the evolving needs of our workforce, right? And continuing education. But that's very, very true for educators themselves, right? Because, we have all of these problems with not just engaging in pragmatic, functional education that will reflect the needs of the community. We also have students that are coming in with different types of issues, different avenues for skirting education. I was actually just talking to the dean, the co-dean, co-associate dean, something. It's not the actual dean, it's like an associate dean. Anyway,
Okay.
but the point is, of engineering. And one problem that people are now experiencing within engineering fields, like engineering is obviously a degree that's deeply rooted in creativity and problem solving and that kind of thing. The problem is, if I go to, Grok, I'm like, hey, Grok, draw me plans for a Dirondack chair using only this amount of wood and blah, blah. And there's like, oh, yeah, sure, here's your cut list. And so you can engage in those types of things in the engineering world where it will come up with solutions for you. So again, how do you engage people, not just in engineering, but, classic writing and whatnot? These are problems. These are all things that teachers in our K through 12 area have to start taking into consideration, where they're like, wait a minute. I knew like how to catch cheating, or I knew how to inspire people, or I knew what was going to be valuable moving forward or needed in the community before, but now I don't, right? How do you prepare or, enhance teachers for that?
Great question. Ongoing professional development. And there's a requirement in the state of Idaho where teachers have to go through 15 credits of continuing professional education to renew their certificate. And that's a way that we can keep teachers up to date. We can keep them with real-time best practices. So we have a professional development program here at the University of Idaho. It's expanding. We're growing our reach to be throughout the state as well as nationally in terms of what we offer to help teachers stay abreast of what's happening. So, we have 4 years to prepare a teacher in a university, and we do our darndest to get them as best prepared as we can. But we know when they encounter schools, they're going to encounter different realities, like you said, different kiddos, different social and cultural climates. They're going to encounter new technologies, as you've said. And so this ongoing professional development is really key. We do a lot of it virtually in terms of like they can log in and get just-in-time training on particular things. So whether it's dyslexia, or it's using AI in the curriculum, or it's problematic behavior management, or it's working with parents. There's a number of different things that teachers can just quickly log on and avail themselves of. Of course, there's also a lot of research around professional development and the need for ongoing professional development. So while we have those arms of educating teachers as they continue, other things that we're doing are in-person professional development, coaching. That's a really important part of helping teachers advance their skills, is having somebody walk alongside them, help them identify problems, be a sounding board for how they engage in that. So we've got a couple of different enterprises that we're doing that around us as well.
Talk to me about the advancing needs of our population, right? Like the jobs that we have today and the jobs that theoretically we'll have in 10 years or 20 years are not the jobs that we had or needed necessarily 20 years ago, right? You know, one of the most painful education things. Do you recall like 10 or 15 years ago when there was the autonomous vehicles were coming out and it was clear that it's like, okay, the trucking industry is going to die at some point.
Yeah.
And there was that rather insensitive, elected official somewhere that was like, yeah, truck driver just learned to code. And now obviously learning to code is not as valuable as
Nope.
Like I have a friend who was just going through coding school,
Yeah.
coming up with these cool things. It's like, okay, well, now you don't even need that, right? So it's kind of like, where are you going to go? Like, what are the jobs? These are questions that my wife and I have about our boys because we have young boys. It's like,
Yeah.
what are we going to help them with? So, like, how do we train teachers to help educate people for jobs like that, where it's like it's an ever shifting. Like, what does education mean at that point? Like, what are those enduring skills that really need to be ingrained?
Great question. You said it earlier, Matt. You said they were like, you're not an expert on much, but you are an expert on how to learn, right? And I think that is key to what educators are doing, because the landscape is changing so fast. But if we can help young people know how to learn, know how to ask good questions and be curious, how to seek out resources and information, we're setting them up for success in whatever workplace they go. So much of what workplaces are doing now is on-the-job training. So while we might give them some foundational skills, that like training that's really discrete to the industry that they're working in or to the profession they're working in happens a lot of times on the job. But that underlying aspect of how do I learn? How do I approach a problem? How do I inquire? How do I seek out resources that help me solve that problem or ask the right questions? That's what we need to be doing in education. Facts are important, right? And there's a foundational level that students need to know. But without that curiosity and that ability to problem solve, I don't think we're setting them up for success. So I think that's the answer in how we address a changing workplace when we can't predict that terribly well in the future, right? Like, and it's changing so fast.
So teach them how to learn.
Yeah.
Okay. This was actually my standard answer when people were like, when am I ever going to learn use this? And they're like, oh, you're like, we're dealing with parabolas. Like, when am I ever going to use a parabola? And it's like, well, there's a certain portion of people, like you're not going to, every meal you eat can't be your most favorite meal. But you eat a variety of things and then you develop a palate and you're like, I actually like this more than I like, liverwurst. I don't know, whatever, right? Like you're allowed to dislike things, but you only get an orientation of what you like and what you dislike by being exposed to many things. Okay, so first off, you got to try a bunch of things because you might stumble on something you're like, I would have never thought I liked this. But beyond that, even if you're like, I'm never going to be a mathematician, I already know I don't like math. And, here I'm slogging through, trigonometry or something. One of the defenses of that I would argue with some of my students is like, yeah, but you have to be good at learning stuff, even stuff you don't like in the real world, whatever it is, because I don't care what you're doing. At some point, you're going to interact with with a professional engagement that's going to require you to learn something that you're just not over the moon to learn.
Exactly.
And if you've never had to learn things you don't like, and if you have never really learned how to learn things that aren't like video games are very easy to learn because they're very, very engaging, right?
For some people, not for others.
Okay, that's true.
Okay.
You don't like games at all?
Not my fave.
Video games or games?
I like games, board games,
Okay.
card games,
There you
etc.
go.
Trivia games.
Games and video games.
Okay, yeah.
Games, that's the nature of it. It's called a game because it is something engaged, entertaining.
True. Okay, agreed.
Do you like chess?
I'm not great at chess.
That wasn't the question though.
Do I like chess? It's not my favorite.
Dude, I love chess.
Well,
I love chess.
Because you're smarter than I am.
That's not true. And I didn't say I was great at chess. That wasn't my statement.
You like it.
Dude, I do. I love it so much. It's so frustrating though, because you know what's beautiful about chess? If you play chess, you will know why people screw up arithmetic. Because you make a move and then like you give away your queen and you're like, it was plain as day. There was nothing hiding there. There was like the rook is right there. You moved right in front of the rook. You just weren't looking at it.
Yeah.
And it brings you back to your own frailty and limitations as a human, being, where it's like you're not going to be paying attention to everything. And by the way, you can get better at tracking these things. You just have to practice a lot, right? Anyway, yeah, but like the nature of games is that if you're trying to learn a skill set in a gamification mode, which we see a lot in education at this point, you will always miss that aspect of learning where it's like, learn something you don't like that's not a game. And if you don't have the skill set of learning, you're dead.
So true. I mean, I'm a mom of 3 kids, and this is a lesson we are regularly talking about. I have a junior in high school, and he's like, I don't want to do this. And we're like, buddy, like, we understand you don't love this thing, but you're developing a skill set and to, one, frankly, do hard things you don't want to do, and how to approach a problem, how to learn things that are difficult for you and that are challenging. Maybe you're not the best at, which is hard for him because he's the best at a lot of things. And so when he encounters a challenge, he's like, oh, I want to give up. But we have to teach that persistence, because I think what happens is if it's not easy for us in a world of instant gratification, in a world where we can quickly get things, I think we give up, right? And I think part of what education has to do is to help students persist and help them understand, like, I can do this. I can do this hard thing that I'm being asked to do or that I have to do.
Do you, within educating young people, do you find it necessary? You talk about your kid, right? That's good at a lot of things. And it's frustrating for him to do something that he's not good at.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, he got to that point real fast because, you're just bad at things when you're a kid. But you reach a certain level of competence with most things, and then you scrap all the things you're bad at, right? By the time you get to our age, you never do something you're bad at. First, because it's practical, right? Like, I don't have a lot of time to do things that aren't producing a lot of high value, and I'm not producing a lot of high value with something I'm not good at, right? So part of it's pragmatic, right? But another part of it is it's so painful to go back to being like in second grade where you're terrible at things. And because of that, our younger people never see us demonstrate the process of being bad to being great. And they see us as these finished products, and we never, emulate what we want them to be, which is better and better and better until you're a master at something, right? And I think that's like, do you engage with that in your private life or in your professional life? Because I think that's one of the things where people get so frustrated, but they get frustrated because they think the finished product should be the place they are right now.
Yeah, that whole notion of productive struggle, right? Like, that's so important to engagement and to leveling up, if you will. I'd love to say I do that in my personal life, but like you, super pragmatic in terms of like, how do I have time to, like, what do I dedicate it to? Man, I would love to say I have an example of that. Maybe I do, and maybe I'll think about it in a minute. I think at work, right? I tend to lean into the things that I'm really good at, but there are always opportunities for growth. And more of those seem to be coming at me these days in terms of like, well, I don't like having difficult conversations was not my favorite thing. I do not like conflict, but when you become a dean, this is a regular part of your job. And it's like, how do I acquire skills for this? So I've done professional development myself. Like, how do I improve in this particular area, which is not my strength and I'm not comfortable with and I don't lean into? So I would say in that regard, yes, that has been an area of growth that I've gone from being pretty novice at to like having a little more skill. Definitely not expert in that. But I haven't thought about the way you talked about that, Matt, in terms of like, yeah, young people see us as experts. They see us as mastery. Right. And how do we help them understand like we didn't arrive there the day we were born, right? Like, this was a lifetime of productive struggle.
I think it's particularly important for, like, there's this kid, Trent, who was really, really good at swimming when I was in high school. He was a year older than me, huge. He was like 6'4", gigantic, all the ladies thought he was fantastic looking too. He had like these blinding white shoes. Like Trent was very fashionable. And he was also an incredible athlete. But Trent, here's the thing. Trent was a great athlete. Michael Phelps, he was in the Olympics by like 15. Okay, and I think about Trent. Trent never made it to the Olympics. He was very, very close. But I think about these two people because it's like, listen, if you're standing next to that person and you're 15 years old, your perception of success and capacity begins and ends with he was born with that. And in all honesty, you wouldn't be wrong in the case of Michael Phelps and to some degree Trent. Like Trent was breaking records at like age 4. Now you can't tell me that at age 4 he had like strived and he'd struggled for like decades. Like the dude was 4, right? Like he was pooping in a diaper 2 years prior and now he's like put a Speedo on him and he's like taken off like a fish. But you have this false perspective that very, very, very successful people are just that way because those are your only peers. You don't have a long enough time frame to establish like, oh, this person was terrible at this, but like over the last 15 years, they got really, really like, damn, that's amazing. You know, and it's like, it's so important for the 16-year-olds to understand that. Because if not, then they'll terminate things that they may be interested in, but don't think they have, natural capacities towards.
Yeah. So how do we cultivate opportunities for that? Right.
Like it comes back to learning.
Yeah.
Right. This is the whole thing. Like teaching them to learn, and learning starts with you're terrible.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. How do I do this thing? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's okay. Right. Like I think one of the things too that we've, in an era of high stakes testing that kind of dominated the country for a period of time, right?
Are we coming out of that, do you think?
Well, Idaho is really different, I think. I came from Texas, so coming from Texas to Idaho has been a vastly different reality in terms of high-stakes testing. It's not very high stakes here, which I prefer. But the reality is, like, we were training kids instead to, like, just get the right answer and not realize that mistakes and that notion of productive struggle, like, that is key to learning. And I think that's one of the things that we also have to help young people develop capacity for when they encounter a new workforce, right? Is like, it is okay to make mistakes. As a matter of fact, I'm going to learn more from that mistake than likely if I was, didn't have to struggle with that. And so, but how do we cultivate a learning environment that allows for that? And that's part of what educators need to be doing when they're designing their classrooms and thinking about how do we honor mistakes? How do we value mistakes? How do we say this is okay and actually is part of the learning process?
Okay, can I ask you something? Are you a fan of the mastery style grading system where it's like, hey, look, man, I don't care if you turned in your homework in the first 2 weeks. What I care about is where you are as far as capacity at the end of the semester. Because by the way, I got a B- in trigonometry my sophomore year, because I remember second semester, I missed like 3 assignments in the first month. I was like, oh no, I can't recover from this. Like it doesn't even matter if I get an A and everything. Like I've missed cumulatively enough points that it's like, and then I kind of like threw it away anyway. I was like, well, forget it. If I'm not going to get like an A, like I held on to the B, but like that type of education where instead of having the assignments and deadline-based things and project-based things that lead to a cumulative grade at the end, instead you're like, no, we're just going to be skill-oriented. If you screw up a test along the way, if you retake it and prove that you now have that material understanding, then like we're going to give you that grade. That flies in the face of like what our generation was, centered around. Like, what do you think about that style?
I think there's a lot of benefit to that style. I think we've tried to get it adopted in the state and it has not gone well because I think people don't have a paradigm for it. They don't understand like, well, my kid needs to have a grade at X date, or I need some benchmark for what this looks like. And what if a kid doesn't get there? And the reality with mastery learning is there's an ever evolving formative feedback loop where you are assessing where kids are and trying to figure out, okay, what do they need to be successful in moving forward. So I'm a big fan. I think it's difficult to implement, and I think it has to have a systematic approach to be implemented. I don't think, obviously, a single teacher can't engage in that because it flies against, like you said, the rules of the school. But there has to be a systems approach and leadership that's supportive of it.
Yeah, but like, doesn't it seem weird that people can turn, like one of my sons is in a school that allows him to turn in assignments like 8 weeks late. Like it's just too weird to me. And I had a student Scout Courtney, who was really struggling in, standard classes, right? At her standard, public high school.
Yeah, traditional.
Yeah, and she went to a non-traditional school where they engaged in this thing, and I was like, okay, they're only going to give you the test when you're ready for the test. That's not going to work. She passed. She knocked out like 4 AP tests with 5s across the board. I was like, wait, how? And she was dying in the traditional public school. But she was able to learn the things. They just stopped gauging her capacity with these things until she was really ready to crush it. And they're like, no, you're not quite, like, let me help you keep polishing the stone and then it'll be beautiful. And she's like, okay, great. So they kept working now again. She had more like one-on-one and small group instructions. That's not viable or, tenable for a lot of people. But that was one where I was really like, oh my gosh, that does work. Like she would not have ever, she graduated with like a 4.3 or something, then went on to, I think she got a PhD, like she crushed, right? So it was something that really had staying power. But you don't have any of the capacity to hold people to like deadlines and stuff, which is a real part of the real world.
Yeah, it is. It is. But at the same time, I think there's ways to mitigate for that too, in terms of like, ultimately, we do want our workforce to master concepts and tasks and skills, right? Like that's ultimate goal. What you're developing a skill set that allows you to do your job well. Does there need to be a timeline or a deadline for that? I don't know. Maybe in some industries there does, but I think that is the process of learning, right? Like becoming a master of something, an expert in something takes a lot of time, and it comes at different intervals for different people, but they arrive at the outcome all the same. Sometimes they arrive at the outcome all the same.
I actually kind of take back what I said.
Okay, take it back.
There are deadlines. They're just not as frequent.
Yeah.
Like my son who's in 8th grade could not turn something in from 6th grade, right? So there is a deadline that approaches either at the quarter or the semester. And there are smaller deadlines along the way. I'm actually from like my academic footprint, if you did like an academic character profile, I am not great with busy work. Like I'm more of like a big picture kind of guy. Like I like ideas and projects. But if you have me just grinding through busy work every day, like I can make it for about 6 or 7 weeks, which is why I always love summer school. But like if you make me do a 15-week poll, at week 8 I fall apart. Like I just can't keep the busy work stuff going. So perhaps, and it's not like I'm bad with deadlines now, so perhaps the answer really isn't, first off, the assertion shouldn't be that there aren't deadlines. I was wrong with that. There are deadlines, they're just not as frequent. And perhaps the answer to the concern that I had around that is like, maybe you don't need deadlines every single day like that to learn the concept of responsible time management.
You don't. And,
okay, great.
And in the
so I arrived at my own...
Yeah, in the workplace, right? Nobody's checking on you daily. Generally, I mean, it depends on the kind of industry you're in. But I think you're absolutely right in terms of there are deadlines that are incremental and there's check-ins, right? This is evaluation, this sort of assessment to see where you are on the trajectory. But busy work is, I mean, I don't know if your kids talk, my kids talk about it all the time. Like, Mom, this just feels like busy work. This just feels like busy work. Like I've got, and my junior that's a lot of what he says. And it's unfortunate. I think he over-exaggerates it. Let's just say he's 16, right? Like
a little dramatic.
But we're driven by assessments. We're driven by, we've got to have grades in the grade book. We've got to have something that kids can see or parents can see or administrators can see. And it's like, but do we? Do we really have to do it, as you've mentioned, that frequently? Are there ways to do more authentic and meaningful check-ins that lead to that mastery?
Are there? That's a question for you. Are there, because like UC Santa Cruz tried to do away with grades like a while back, right? And they're like, we'll just write some novel and assess you. It's like, well, how are you going to hand that in to somebody, right? So there is, as long as I've, been conscious, as a semi-adult and then an adult, there has been this question of like, well, look, how do we really assess success in education? That's actually a broad question around, the private school system at this point, which is like, well, if the education is what people like, it's like, well, can we agree on what that is? They're like, nope, we're not going to agree on what that is, but we're just going to put money towards, quote, education, even though we don't have a definition of what that education is. It's like, well, wait, then how can you put money towards education if you can't identify it? They're like, exactly. And like my head explodes.
You're like, not a non-answer.
Yeah, right. So like, what do we do with that?
with a question around like, what do we want to measure? What is education for? Is that the question? Or
Yeah,
around like,
can we, how do we, how do we effectively recognize that striving towards a quantitative metric and articulating the result of such as being a presence or absence of success with an education tends to drive people away from what students need, which is a more, malleable and forgiving education system that doesn't take away your capacity for a high mark in the first 3 weeks of the semester, right? That's more of what suits people better long term with education. But we're driven towards quantifying success to defend. Well, I'm not defending anything, but to make an example of success or failure within education.
yeah, I mean, I think people want data, right? They want metrics and they want it to be easy, right? I think though we do have opportunities for that in the state in terms of growth metrics. So, when you sit in an elementary school and you're talking to your kid's teacher and they're showing you like, here's where your kid was on sort of reading benchmarks at the beginning of the year, and here's where they are now. You're seeing growth in terms of like, we're really excited because your kid's grown from here to here. Now that's going to be different than Johnny next to them, right? So I think those kind of indicators are more relevant to the student because it's based on where the student starts and where they finish. And granted, they're being compared to their peers, right? So we want to know like a third grader is going to need to be at this level at the end of third grade.
Sure.
But nonetheless, it's very individualized based on the student. So I think more of that, but we get away from that when kids move out of elementary school and we move more into sort of traditional evaluative measures, traditional assessment measures. But there's ways that educators are doing that individually in their classrooms and can do that. It's time consuming, right? But it is ultimately what is important for helping ensure that students are growing and they are developing that capacity to learn and to ask good questions.
Look, you're the dean, okay?
That means like nothing.
Well, it means you're not the associate dean.
I guess that's true. It means that.
And it means you're not me.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Do you see a larger or increasing or decreasing desire to become educators? I was talking to somebody from, about nursing and medical school and stuff earlier today. And I'm really worried about the shrinking desire for people to move into the medical, into the medical field. We have a huge lack of teachers, current professional teachers. Is there a lack of interest in education as well? Are you guys like growing, shrinking? Do you have wait lists? Do you have empty seats? We're
sort of staying about the same in terms of enrollment. We saw some increase in enrollment in elementary and secondary education this year. I would attribute it to the fact that that's a launch-funded program, and that's encouraging young people to go into those professions.
You mean when you help with tuition, people will do it? Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah. But overall, generally in the country as a whole, and I think we see in our state, there is a declining interest in pursuing a teaching degree. There's a lot of reasons for that. I think now we're seeing increasing conversation around like public rhetoric around education and like the value of education, the value of teachers. And I think that's worrisome for young people entering profession. Like, am I going to get called out for something I say? Am I going to get called out for something that's in the curriculum? I think that's a worry. I think pay is a worry always. Though I think we've worked really hard in our state to try to increase that and be thoughtful about the benefits that our teachers have. There's this question about a 4-year degree, like, and what's the ROI on a 4-year degree and going to be an educator?
I heard that recently, actually. Somebody said, look, do you really need a first grade teacher to have a 4-year degree? And like, I'm not putting down the skill sets of first grade teachers or the demanding, like, and I don't think this person was either. They're just like, look, I mean, think about it. Like, it's going to be X cost. Is that absolutely necessary? Is it an associate's degree? Is it a certification? Is it,
Yeah, this actually came up just this week because there's a movement to move to 3-year degrees, 90 credits, right? And there's a push. I think Superintendent Critchfield's really interested in how do we prepare teachers in 3 years and 90 credits. I haven't landed my position on this issue yet because I'm going to be curious what we cut. So what's not going to be important for an educator walking out into the field? Because my personal perspective is we can't cut the education related stuff. We can't cut classroom management or how we teach or cognitive development or pedagogy. We can't cut early literacy classes. So what are we going to take out of the and the other thing that I'm concerned about is, do we reduce the number of field experiences and internships and practicums? So what goes in a 3-year degree? Is it the gen ed stuff? And because we don't think they need like a broad liberal arts education. So I haven't landed on my position here, other than it's an affront to me as a person in higher ed. That's initially how I feel. Like, you're going from a 4-year degree to a 3-year degree. You're deprofessionalizing this. And yet at the same time, understand the pragmatism behind it and the frankness of a 1-year reduction in debt that a future teacher is going to incur. I'm excited for that for them. But I think we have to be thoughtful about, what does 90 credits look like? And how are we going to design that to be effective so that they can be effective in their classrooms?
To get a teaching certification, don't you have to like shadow a teacher?
You have to. Yeah.
And then be a student teacher? Mm-hmm. Like, I literally don't know. But I remember I had a student teacher in 8th grade, Mr. It doesn't matter what his name was. Mr. Somebody. He was not great at teaching history. But
not yet. He was advancing his skills, hopefully.
Yeah, well, and then he was a teacher in the high school at some point, and he was like the football coach, and he was like very bro-ish. And I was like, buddy, I'm not. You're not my guy. It's fine. It's fine. He thought highly of himself. He probably should have. I don't know. I was 16. It doesn't matter. But is there a world where part of the reduction in time, and again, I don't know anything about teaching and I don't know anything about teaching teachers, but like, is there a world where you add on skill sets that could be delivered, or points of observation that could be delivered within like the student teaching curriculum or within like ongoing? So it's like, hey, look, we're not going to give you this course on, classroom management as a required course at university. You're going to learn some of it, obviously, when you shadow and then student teach. And then we're going to do a continuing education credit at year 4 once you've been in the field for 4 years. And then we'll give you a little bit more there. And that way you can get people in the field and working. You get 1 year, less year of debt. You have a little bit slightly different focus or something like that. But is that like a possibility?
Yeah, actually, just give me a great idea, Matt. Thank you for helping me think through.
Are you patronizing me?
No, I'm serious. I'm so very serious. So I think it's.
I think she's patronizing me.
No, it's a great idea because, what we know about teachers is so much of what they learn in the field.
Yes, right.
So
right.
We can give them theory and concepts, which are important, but until they can actually put that into application and see, like, when the rubber meets the road, does this thing really work? I don't think they have a full concept. And they certainly don't have it when they're entering their first year of the classroom. But give them a year of experience full-time in a classroom, and then let's revisit some other concept or something that we think you need advanced training on. That's great.
That sounds good to me.
I like this. Okay, you're helping me conceptualize this new whole professional development thing we're doing in alignment with a 3-year degree.
The faster we can get teachers making money, and the lower the debt load, we could stretch out whatever needs to be done, right? And you always have the horrible and hopefully very infrequent experience of somebody going through this and, getting 4 years, certification, the whole thing, going into a school system, and within the first couple of years being like, oh my God, I hate this, and leaving. And then, boom, you did all this stuff, right? And so, not that we have to design curriculum around that person or that experience, and hopefully that never comes to pass, but it does come to pass occasionally, right?
Does, yeah.
So it's like, okay, the sooner we can get them in there, they'll have 1 extra year of money. If you took how much is a 4-year college or a 4-year degree at UofI?
Great question. 45,000, somewhere in there, 40,000.
Is that tuition? That's tuition only?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say 80, room and board.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay,
maybe a little less.
So you have at the end of 5 years, you have your 80 in debt, and let's say you make 35 as a teacher. Mm-hmm. So that's a 45 net loss in a 5-year time frame versus 60 and then 2 years of making money, which is 35 and 35. So that's 70, right? So you're actually net $10,000 at the end of 5 years instead of being in the hole 45.
Look at you doing the math.
Look at me doing that.
Right here. You learned a few things in trigonometry.
Oh my God. Come on. This is a great pitch. 5-year time frame from start to finish. You are not in debt. you are $10,000 positive, opposed to a 5-year poll where you're still 45,000
Yeah,
in debt.
I mean, I hear this. I'm going to have to go put pencil to paper and check your math.
We're doing this right now.
But I think there's something to that.
I smell something good.
Okay.
I think it's there.
I'm going to call you after this and be like, okay, let's talk through this. Let's talk through your ideation.
I'm going to be somebody in 10 years where like there was this idiot that went up to UofI with all these cockamamie ideas and he ruined the Idaho education system. He was just really good at convincing the poor dean.
I don't think that's going to be the reality. I don't think that'll be the truth.
I'll make my mark somewhere.
There you go. Yeah.
Great. Listen, I know today's a working day. Thank you for making the time. We're kind of coming to the end. Is there anything you want to kind of hit here at the end?
Oh, that's a big question. I mean, I guess I'll just leave it with this, that I think we're doing really great things in the state of Idaho, and particularly in education. And I think for a state with, not maybe as many resources as other states, we're pretty darn scrappy. And I think the great thing is we're seeing a lot of collaboration from all different sorts of units. So whether it's institutions of higher ed, state agencies, the state board, I think there's a collaborative approach to how we improve education in the state. And we're getting creative about that, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And so I would just say that it's education. We're doing good stuff. And there's still things to tackle, but we're working on those things too.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, people are working. And yeah, it's not perfect. Surprise! Like, all right, yeah. And guess what? It's a hot damn mess. Like, this whole, and again, I was never a formal teacher within a private school or public school. Well, private if you want to consider Matt Todd University school. But like, yeah, dude, you're always learning. You're always getting better. You just got to, you know what it is? You got to stay in the fight. That's all it is.
Absolutely.
Just don't tap out. Just stay in the damn fight. Try to get a little bit better. Try to make one better teacher. Try to engage people a little more. Just stay in the fight and all will be fine. Do you get to do much teaching as a dean now?
Not a ton. I do supervise student teachers, which is fun because it puts me out in the classrooms and I get to watch teachers in action. And so that's fun. I taught our internship seminar a couple of semesters ago. I miss it a ton because I love teaching. I'm a 4th generation educator. I've spent 20 years teaching in various capacities. And so it's a little hard not to do it on a regular basis, but I have the occasion to do it.
Yeah, when I was a younger tutor, everybody'd be like, okay, you're going to start a tutoring center? I'm like, no. I like teaching. They're like, yeah, but like, you got to start a tutoring center. And it always cracked me up because like, dude, if I told you I was a doctor, would you tell me I got to open a hospital and be an admin? Like, no, you just let me be a doctor, right? Not that I'm a doctor, nor did I do anything like a doctor, let's be clear. But I just love teaching, and it seems that you do as well. So I hope you find some way to get back into the classroom and engage that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. Let's do it again if you're in the Treasure Valley sometimes.
Yeah.
Not super frequently, but when you are, come on in.
I will come in.
I promise my studio is very functional.
Awesome.
More so than this one. All right. Thank you. We'll see you. Do it again soon.
All right.